Black Desert Online is one of the most popular MMORPGs currently available. It's a gorgeous game that even 10 years after its release retains the title of the best looking MMO with the best action combat, which won't always be the case, especially when looking at this enormous list of MMOs coming this year, a list that we compiled and posted that you should definitely check out. After releasing in December 2014, there's still yet to be an MMO that is capable of competing with it in terms of graphics, combat, world, or class diversity. But just because it excels in a variety of different areas doesn't necessarily mean that it's the perfect fit for you, which is why I'm here today to discuss with you whether Black Desert Online is worth playing in 2024. And I'm joined by 5 incredible players, the largest, most knowledgeable content creators in all of Black Desert Online. Now, I could tell you that the game is or isn't worth playing. Now, I could tell you the game is or isn't pay to win, but I've only just scratched the surface of the game, having only played a couple hundred hours and never having really participated in the hardcore endgame. So allow for me here to compile and combine my personal thoughts and experiences as a very casual player with the thoughts and opinions and experiences of players that have spent thousands, some tens of thousands of hours into making it into the top tier content every single year. Please take a moment to check out each of these creators, Laz, Uni, Rapolas, Elly, and Blue, if you need absolutely anything related to BDO. You will not find a more talented group of people. As a new player, it can be very difficult to get into a new MMO, especially if you know absolutely nothing about it. With this in mind, I asked every single creator to describe Black Desert Online to a new player, someone who has absolutely no history with the game and knows absolutely nothing about it. To me, personally, Black Desert is a gorgeous, seamless, open world sandbox MMO with infinite freedom to play however you want. You can grind monsters all day. You can life skill, you can sail, you can fish. It's very difficult to your traditional MMO with a linear story, with a shift from hub A to hub B, but I mean, that's just, the game from my perspective. What do they have to say?
This is the best single-player MMO you will ever experience, which is kind of true at the same time, but at the same time, you can do group stuff. You will do group stuff, and it's not a priority, but it's like a well-mixed... I mean, once you get into BDO, it's not going to let you go. Like, people usually quit a little bit afterwards, but they always return.
So I think Black Desert is definitely an open world sandbox. It's a game that you can adjust based on your needs. It's a game that's adapted to if you want to play completely AFK, basically, which is how I started playing BDO. I started playing BDO because I had to study a lot during COVID because we went full homeschool, but I didn't want to just study. So my friends introduced me to BDO, and I started just AFK horse riding on the side. I felt like I was not just completely engrossed into my studies and just had something else to do.
The thing is that the game is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It has so many good little things about it that it actually comes across, I think, for a new player as borderline overwhelming at first, just because it's a new MMO. There's so much time invested to be able to understand so many departments of it. I think what really draws me towards the game, however, is absolutely how the game looks, how the game plays, and how the combat functions. The combat and in PvE and PvP is unlike any other MMO, honestly, that I've seen, simply because it's so much more, the playstyle is so much more catered towards like a traditional style of a fighting game, like Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, much more higher reactive key inputs required from the player. I find that once you start getting used to that flow, I find it to be incredibly engaging, and I find it to be incredibly satisfying and rewarding as a player when you start to get used to that. In terms of the details of the game, it is incredibly outstanding in terms of how it looks, based on just what they have in that game. In terms of the content that exists, I think the game and the developers continue to make the game more and more new player friendly, while endgame players continue to raise the bar and set the tone in terms of future content and how things are going to be changed in the future. Obviously that content continues to be delivered to us, but I find that as more time goes by, this game continues to be the most new player friendly it's ever been.
As a person that's been around and played quite a few MMOs and not just try them out for like 10 minutes, I extensively played other MMOs. Black Desert Online sticks out as a very unique experience compared to a lot of other MMOs where they have you raiding for a month to 2 months, and then there's a big downtime period, and then they introduce new content after like 6 months to a year, and then the cycle begins all over again. In Black Desert, the moment you enter, you are introduced into an open world sandbox MMO where you are the narrator of your own adventure, your own journey. So the moment you log in, you can go and explore the desert, die in the desert from hypothermia, and or go to the winter mountains and enjoy the scenery there. Or you can go pick up a fishing rod and go fish. You can make your own journey out of BDO, where I feel like you can't really do that in other MMOs, where are strictly linear. Do this, get this gear, raid this, clear the raid, get this other gear, and it kind of just ends there. For Black Desert, you really can do whatever you want and do whatever you want of your journey.
It's an open world MMO, so massive multiplayer online games. You're playing with a lot of other people, and it's a sandbox MMO. So the idea is you're dropped into the world. You can basically just kind of go do whatever you want. You can go life skill, you can go grind PvE mobs, you can go play with your friends, you can PvP. There's a lot. You can go out on your boat, just like live on the ocean. There's all different sorts of things you can do. The two things that BDO is known for mainly, though, is the combat system, not just for PvP, but in PvE, it's incredibly fulfilling to grind with. Just a super fulfilling PvE grind experience, and then like the combat is just super fluid. It's the best in the genre for sure. And then the graphics are incredibly good too. So you've got excellent waifus.
So it's very adapted, like you can adapt it to your needs basically, which is what's so nice about it, I think.
So there isn't just one path, the right path to do it.
Before we delve any deeper into BDO, let me take a moment to thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon who allow for me to continue to do videos like this every single month. You guys are incredible and I cannot thank you all enough for the support. Most MMOs are relatively similar in terms of content. You level by questing out in the world. Players perhaps pursue a main story. They move from quest hub to quest hub. But what makes BDO different? Or is it more of the same?
I do want to say that the biggest plus, and all of MMOs should have this, which is no trading between players. I think that's like a must in MMO. So first of all, it eliminates all the pay to win, or not pay to win, the pay to player transaction, and it also kind of keeps the value of like items between players and the rarity between items. Obviously, the fantastic combat on each class, like the cinematics are just incredible. Like every class trailer you can like keep on looking, like the new Megu Wusa or the new Scholar.
So I think what's really nice and what captured me immediately is obviously the graphics and the looks of the game, which is very beautiful. And it allows for a lot of customization. I've definitely been sinking way too many hours into character customization because I enjoy that a lot. So while some just go for a template, you can sit there for hours if you want to customize your characters, which I enjoy a lot. But I think what really kept me going was the way the key input varies so much based on the class you're playing. Whereas you have WoW or Lost Ark where you just have 8 keys. And you press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 based on your hotbar, which is, some people enjoy that. But to me, I really enjoy the fact that BDO has combos. So every class has different combos, different ways you grind. So it's like Shift F, you're dashing from side to side. It's way more interactive in a different way than just hitting the 1 on your hotbar and then the action is done. And then you kind of wait and there's not really interrupting, not really movement here. It's very complex how the entire skill system is. And it makes it quite complex also to get into PvP, I would say. As a new player, to me, recognizing, oh, people are like, oh, he's gonna do a grab. And I'm just like, he's running at me. He could be throwing any skill for my sake, but people just recognize that kind of pattern. So you can just It's a game that very easily lets you get into it and have fun with a bit more complex way of grinding or PvPing. But if you really want to like insert hours into it and really go and practice, you can also become just very, very good and master a more skillful way of playing the game.
I find that with Black Desert, they take influence and inspiration from those traditional MMO mechanics that you see in so many popular games that we love. But I always say that Black Desert tries to do it in a Black Desert way. So in terms of describing that, sometimes it's kind of hard because their perspective, they want to kind of look interesting to their own regard and staying to their brand name. However, with lots of random in-game occurrences that can happen just invested through time. So kind of like with RuneScape, you can have like a random goblin show up, or you can get a genie lamp or some special things just to kind of give you that hit of dopamine for the time you may have invested in the game. BDO has a lot of stuff like that going on, whether it be traditional little dungeons in a Black Desert way that you can go through, whether it be weekly events in their Black Shrine monster hunting game modes that they have, or whether it be just all the time that you've invested in a grind spot and having random events also occur, whether it be a boss to go hunt, or whether it just be a simple NPC giving you a quick little loot reward and things like that. So the thing is, I find that BDO tries to do things in a BDO way. I know that's a little bit narrow or I know that's a kind of a little bit diluted in this response. But I find that what separates them is that combat, is the look that they try to have, is that unique image that they try to essentially give themselves. But you can absolutely see that influence taken from those mechanics in games that I think that you'd want to see. Traditionally in the past, this game didn't have a lot of that content existing in it. And now with my previous answer also saying how new player friendly this game is, I also find in terms of it does a much better in terms of respecting your time. And again, the big thing that always, the pinnacle of what always stands out for me is that combat, is that gameplay, and is that fluidity that you see across the 20 plus characters in the roster of champions that you can choose from.
Choices is, when I think Black Desert, I think choices. And if I wanted to be a life skiller, I can have a deep, fulfilling journey doing life skilling. And just within the life skilling world, I could go out, craft the biggest, bestest boat, and go and do sailing content. I could become the best fisher, and just within just these two, but there's a lot more. I can do big, deep adventures than just these two things. Along with all the other life skilling that they do have. PvP seems to be something that was very prominent for Black Desert early on. It seems to be dwindling down, but a lot of people like to see Black Desert's in-game content as, PvP. So you could take that as probably more unique, where Black Desert is very PvP focused at the end. Which is an option still. It's a choice. People can choose to participate and join PvP or not. Again, choices. And then I guess lastly is that it doesn't really offer that much or doesn't really force players to do multiplayer content as opposed to other MMOs where I feel it is almost, which makes sense, right? They're called massive multiplayer online games. You expect to have some multiplayer in them. But at Black Desert, you really can just enjoy the journey without ever needing the help of somebody else. However, though, I think there's way more other reasons why Black Desert, people play Black Desert or MMOs in general. It's the feeling of having other players around, not necessarily that you get to interact with them. And it's an RPG game that gets continuous updates, that's another unique thing for Black Desert. Like every Wednesday, there is something new, whether it be a class getting balanced, a new class, new continent, a new events. Black Desert gets the most insane updates every Wednesday. I think that's what keeps me hooked coming back to it, is that it's always something. If you take a break for a month and you come back to BDO, you've missed a lot.
Well, there's two really big things. As I said before, the combat is really going to just be standalone, far and away, just way better than basically every other MMO that you're going to encounter. WoW's got like a tab target system. Most other MMOs have like kind of either a clunky action combat or like some sort of hybrid tab target, and it just doesn't measure up to what BDOs kind of has to offer in that regard. You're also going to have, like I said, the graphics are incredibly good as well. I will say that the big difference between BDO, which turns people off, turns some people on, is you don't have a whole lot of raids like you're going to have in Final Fantasy. You don't have the incredible raids that you're going to get in Lost Ark. We do have a dungeon, but our endgame PvE is different. You get together, you grind mobs with other players. Yes, there's the endgame dungeon that's there as well. And then there's endgame guild content coming out soon as well for like PvE stuff, like where you have to like team up and like fight like a really, really big, tough boss. But like, for the most part, most of the things that are going to bring you together, or most of the PvP stuff, they are adding more PvE endgame to the game, but it's not going to be your traditional endgame PvE experience. I will say that another big thing that separates BDO from its competitors is the length of which you can just play the game. So like, it's always about progression. It's always about grind. You could play the game for 7 years and still not be where you want to be. You know, you just keep setting goals and then you go get that goal. But a new player, it's kind of in a good spot, because a new player can pick up the game for the first time and be at 700 gear scores, like end game gear score, or like close, you know, competitive end game gear score in about 3 or 4 months, if they wanted to be really competitive with it versus another player that could play casually and not get there for 3 or 4 years. So like, it's just in a good spot with regards to how actively you want to play the game versus how casually you want to play the game. It's a good MMO for that.
Now, we all know that MMOs can get boring very fast, especially upon reaching max level. You log in for dailies, you maybe participate in a raid or two every week, but is there a lot of content variety in Black Desert? Do you run dungeons? Do you raid at max level? How linear is the game, and how diverse is its selection of content? When I play, I'm not traditionally a fan of life skills or crafting in my MMOs. I mainly grinded monsters. I focused on leveling and attempted to increase my gear score by obtaining and upgrading gear. But it has been a long time since I actively played the game. So has anything changed?
A lot. There is a lot. Oh man. Like, okay, so mainly what people would say is grinding mobs. Secondly, PvP. Now they added recently the 300 versus 300. I didn't participate, sadly, because there's like a weird registration that you need to partake in, or just beat the top guild. And so yeah, PvP. There is dungeons per request, because a lot of people are requested, but I don't think it's a dungeon game like a World of Warcraft would be. There's also a big part of it, which I did for many years, is life skilling, which is something you either fish, you gather, and gathering has like mining, panning, sapping. There's so much to it, like horse training. So we have also mythical horses. Then you can get into sailing and bartering like between islands. And you collect ship parts, and you can upgrade your ship. Then you can upgrade your mythical horse, as I said, but you can go to a tier 9, which is like a Pegasus, Doom, and a Dine. And then you can up tier it even more, which is a tier 10. So there's like more and more and more to it. Lore, if you like it, I guess. Sure, we have that, I think, but I'm not myself a big lore fan. You can just chill with guilds. You can do guild missions. You can grind group spots together with people.
So I think this is something that BDO has been expanding a lot on in recent years. So you have obviously open world PvE. You also have a specific PvP channel for PvPing. You have season channels, which is a specific system made for high growth gear score gain for newer players, or also existing players with season rewards. They've made dungeons, which is 5-man group dungeons where you go in and you clear that. It's a once a week type of system with rewards. And then you also have these boss instances that they released now. It's increasingly difficulty with your newest, with the Land of the Morning Light patch that came out. And yeah, obviously you have the different types of PvP. You have the Node War, you have Sieges, which is on Saturday. You have the Guild League, which was recently released this Friday, actually. Or wait, no, yeah, like it went live today, but it also was possible to play yesterday, which is where you queue up with 10 to 15 guildmates, and you go into this queue, and then you fight other guilds of similar amount of people. So they've really extended on, I guess you could say, the portfolio of what you can do in this game. And then there's obviously life skilling, there's a lot of things around just being in game and chatting with friends. A lot of people just AFK on the rooftop in the village or city and chill there and chat with people that stop by. So it's just a mountain of things you can do, which is positive, but also negative in a way, because it makes the game extremely overwhelming. So when people come into my stream and they're like, oh, what do I do as a new player? Like, what do I go to do? And the first thing I tell them is search up a guide. And I link them guides from other content creators in video that's made these beginner guides, because there's so much to do when you're coming in, which is something they're working on, but it's still not quite there because there just is so much. So it's extremely overwhelming and can be almost frightening if you're going in all alone with no one that's had like prior experience with the game. So that's kind of like my first thing, is they should just read a guide. Often is what I tell new players, but I also tell them to just use season, because season is something they've been introduced, and now it's a constant thing. Before it was a 3 months on, 3 months off type of thing, but now it's continuously. So now new players can just always come in and have this gear score boost and some help along the way that kind of introduces them to the concepts.
So there's a variety of departments of content that you can explore down. One of the main ones that I partake in personally is just active grinding, going around killing monsters and spending time to get an hourly currency in return, so I can use that towards my in-game gains. The other departments you can also enjoy would be life skilling, but there's a variety of different types of life skilling, from alchemy to cooking to sailing around the vast oceans and doing bartering and trading, to simple things like chopping down trees, picking weeds, and things like that, all through its own energy consumption system that is the currency for doing those tasks. Then you also have the PvP scene. So you have small scale, which would be, dueling people for a grind spot potentially, or you have the Arena of Solare, which is a 3v3 gear balanced PvP game mode that people can compete in. It also has leaderboards. It also has practice modes as well, where you can do set up matches to play with you and your friends. You also have a large scale PvP scene where you can do 50 versus 50 up to 100 versus 100 siege type PvP content, where you'll have guild leaders doing shot callings, and you'll have your foot soldiers taking those said shot call and directions and going forward to take over and fight for land, territory, or even just bragging rights as well. In those departments of the game, you can explore all of them. You can stick to one of them, and those departments always remain available for that player base. You can also do different types of monster hunting, and also with the Black Shrine that they have. And again, those random in-game events that sometimes do occur. So if some of those events are to spawn and come up, it's essentially a task that you can do later. For example, a boss may spawn. I don't have to go do that right away, but I can. That's in my pocket now. I can go do that later and get that reward for that said random event that does occur. But the three departments would be life skilling, active PvE grinding, and the PvP scene, which all has its own categories, which has its own variety of categories underneath each of those labels.
Being a player that's experienced close to 40,000 hours in Black Desert, I've done it all. I've done sieging. That was my journey. I wanted to join a strong siege guild. I joined the strong siege guild and I sieged. I wanted to do node wars. I've done that as well at the very end of the competitive scene. I wanted to do branch out and become a guru at, life skilling. I've done that. I wanted to become, capture all 3 treasure items, the T10 horses. And I've wanted to collect all treasure items. I've done that. So as somebody who's done like pretty much every in-game thing there is to do right now, like telling a new player, this is what the in-game looks like, or this is what I'm doing. I'm currently trying to go after a new treasure item they just added to the game called the telescope, that allows you to teleport your character to any other character in the game that's in your guild or your party. And I'm currently grinding hours of that. And I don't know, I find it relaxing and fun and a goal to strive for. The drop rate is very low %, but I have fun like chasing that treasure item that only a handful of people actually have in the game. But I've done it all. Like I said, I've done the PvP siege scene, very competitive. I've done just about everything. There is Siege, reaching the top percent of PvP players, where you are fighting for a region in the game, and you get paid for that. You get great rewards. There is Node Wars that you get to do and play with the strongest players in the game that have been playing for a long time. So PvP, there's that side. There's also the collection of treasure items that take a really long time for a player to achieve, but it's something that a lot of players like to try to go for. And then there's life skilling. There is the best gear you can acquire in the game through life skilling and becoming one of the better life skillers in the game. In quotations, better.
Well, a lot of the content you're going to find on Twitch is most of the competitive PvP stuff, or grinding at like really end game spots, or grinding with other people and other content creators. As far as like a solo player experience goes, you're gonna grind one thing or you're gonna grind another thing. You can either do like life skilling, you can get out, you can go make your boat and like evolve it into a bigger boat, and like live on the ocean, or you can go grind PvE mobs. There are treasure items within the game that are super rare that you can go grind for those, and obviously you can work on your gear. There's also like super end game mounts that you can work on as well. So you kind of just have to pick a direction and go with it. You just pick the content that you like the most and then just do a lot of that, and you will progress.
With the rise of gacha games and survival games, and both types of games respectively, essentially eclipsing and absorbing the entirety of the MMO player base, how is Black Desert doing in terms of population? Is it dying? Is it stable? Is it flourishing? And more importantly, does it have a future with games like Blue Protocol, Throne and Liberty, the Ashes MMO, or the Riot MMO on the horizon? Honestly, from the stats that I've seen online and from Pearl Abyss Yearly, BDO seems relatively stable, averaging hundreds of thousands of active players per month. And admittedly, there still has yet to be an MMO that can truly challenge it in any area that it actually excels in. But what do players, specifically players who log in every single day, see?
I would say yes, just because you can just check the just check the server icons of like every server, and it's like usually now in the evenings or especially during weekends, it's like crowded, which means like basically every server is like getting populated with people. And there's a lot of indicators that like flames being the armor upgrades are being sold out and increased in price, which only makes sense if new players are buying it. So you can pick up on like some of the things. So as I don't see the stats, I would love to see them. But I think yes, BDO is increasing in. I guess I could check Steam, but you know, like I think it is. Yes, I think we have a good population of people. It might be just people just checking in on the new class, or they heard about the 300 and they're just kind of coming in. I think people are picking up as BDO as the like a seasonal, like something you like, oh, take a break for a month and then wait until the good patches comes in, and then you check back in, like what's up with this game right now.
Black Desert is almost in a way like League of Legends. Like it's this kind of like addiction where there is nothing that's quite fitting that game. It's nothing that's quite as good as when it comes to that game. So you just always return to it, which is what it feels like in many ways at BDO as well. You have the combat system and the key inputs, which you're just so used to being more stimulating. Even though it's not a lot, like let's be real, like you're still like just hitting keys, but it's just a bit more different than 1, 2, 3, 4, because you swap around what skills you use and you go from Shift F to WF to SL and B, R and B, and like there's more, and you vary which one you do in a different way. It just feels different, which kind of makes you return to it. But I think that BDO in some ways are going more towards almost like so it feels like it's going towards solo playing outside of instanced cooperation kind of modes. So they made Marnie Realm for solo grinding in your own like private server, so that you can't get griefed, you can't have other people grinding on top of you. So a lot of times when you're running around in the open world, it almost feels a bit empty, I would say, because so many people are just grinding in a server that's closed off, which I'm not necessarily that fond of, but I know a lot of people also like it. So there's definitely a larger part of the population that just enjoys grinding and going for those kind of gear goals and are comfortable with that. And those people that can put in all those hours, I think those are the ones that's kind of just always going to stick around, because what they do is there's always new content for you to grind for, basically. When they see that people reach these caps, they make new ways for you to have a goal. And I think as long as they manage to keep that goal there and making it so that there's a reason for you to keep grinding, then they'll have a player base. But it's also a very niche game. So it's not a big player base. And I don't think it's going to grow a lot bigger, but I think that it will kind of stay stable at this niche kind of population area where it's just going to stay in this stable kind of bubble. But I don't think it will expand much more in any way, but I don't think it will die unless it becomes so little that PA decides to shut down the server. They will to some extent bounce back and forth, they'll try new games and they'll come back. It's a bit like a love-hate relationship that everyone has at League of Legends as well. Like, you don't like the game, but then you take a break, but you come back.
I think as more games release and just as more new things come to the market, I think there's always going to be a general interest across the player base abroad. And with that being said, I do think that the PvP scene and the combat system in Black Desert is still to this day unmatched. I'm not afraid to go try other games and things like that. I do actively. I've edited videos for people who have also explored these games in great detail, including making guides. And I just have not seen anything in terms of the combat system come close to BDO, simply because I think they tried to stick to, again, that traditional fighting game, right? And even with other games I've seen that might be comparable to BDO, I feel like it's so much more watered down from what I've seen. In terms of just BDO's PvP scene and the combat system, with it being the way it is, and with me feeling like it's kind of been unmatched in its own way in terms of just the functionality and playability for the player with their hands at the keyboard, I do think that will stand strong in terms of just the general fan base, because again, the PvP scene is active. It does, come in waves as updates come out, as good ones come out, bad ones come out. We're always going to have that roller coaster as new titles release and things like that. The hype waves come and go and things like that. But I seriously think that the PvP scene continues to remain healthy. And that's the thing too. Some people hear PvP and they think, oh, I got to join this game. I got to spend a long time to get a bunch of gear. And the great thing about the PvP scene is that there's tiers of PvP in the large scale scene, T1 all the way up to T4, and those tiers have tier caps. So you could start an account, and I'd say probably within like a few weeks, you could have your account very, very playable for like tier 1 Node Wars, which is a very popular Node Wars scene and has always been popular in the BDO community itself. And then as you continue to progress through the game and make more gains, you can start to compete in those higher tiers with higher gear caps, and essentially going into fights that are also uncapped, if that makes sense, because the game is so gear progression heavy, if you will. So in terms of just like the activeness, the PvP scene is still active, but again, like the interest level for the player base will continue to go up and down as we see those new titles come out and people want to try them out. But in terms of competition coming out, new MMOs hitting the floor, I just haven't seen anybody come out with even a comparable combat system to BDO yet, honestly. And I'm not saying that as like a ride or die, completely biased opinion. I do genuinely feel that way, trying to be as unbiased as possible.
One thing that I would, being with Black Desert and playing with Black Desert, enjoying Prolibus as the new publisher, right? They took rights for their game. It used to be published under Cacao. I have full confidence that this team is listening, that this team is listening to their community. I think with a great developer behind you, publisher, your game can withstand and last for like a lifetime, like forever. I definitely have confidence that with all these other MMOs that are coming out, as an MMO player, you always have that question: is it worth it? Is my MMO going to stay around for like years? I would bet everything that Black Desert Online is here to stay for another 10 years because of the developers that are behind the game.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for the Throne of Liberty release. A lot of BDO players are. We're all very skeptical at the same time. I will definitely try to go play it. The problem is, I think we're all just going to keep coming back to BDO. BDO's population is extremely well grounded, because until an MMO comes along that can beat its combat and can beat its graphics, it's really just not going to get, like, people are just not going to stop playing this game. The player base is super healthy. It does go through its ups and goes through its downs. You know, you come out with a new expansion, you're going to see a bunch of new people playing the game, and then it'll kind of slope back down. But over time, you definitely see a solid player base overall. I would say that I think the Steam charts rest at like 23 to 26,000 normally, which means that, and you can buy it on Steam or you can buy it on the normal launcher. So more people probably own it on the normal launcher because it didn't release on Steam. It released like by itself, and then later it had its Steam release. So like you're looking at 40 or 50,000 active players probably overall, which is pretty good. And the world feels alive. Like there's very active guilds, the communities are super active, content creators are always making content for the game, so it's generally always in a healthy spot, which is good for me as a content creator. I think that BDO it'll probably trickle down 5 to 10 years from now, because like other MMOs will come out that have a combat system that can at least be competitive. There are games that are starting to catch up to its graphics for sure, you know, like this game is like 9 years old and we're just starting to hit that. And in the rest of the MMO genre, you know, Ashes of Creation looks great, Throne and Liberty looks like a great game, and so does Lost Ark. If Lost Ark wasn't so pay to win, oh my goodness, and top down. But like the problem is, I think in 5 to 10 years you will probably see an MMO that has crazy combat and solid graphics that are up to snuff, and BDO will lose a fair amount of its player base, but it's going to take some time. You know, people are really dedicated to their progression. They've been invested years and years onto these accounts, and I don't think they really want to let that go easily. So
Now, this one is a bit of a controversial question, yet it is probably the most common question asked on any platform online. Is Black Desert Online pay to win? This is something I truly cannot accurately answer, because honestly, I've never really played the game competitively at Endgame, but with my very limited knowledge as a casual player, I would say that if you define pay for convenience or pay to advance as pay to win, then yeah, definitely. The game is 100% pay to win. But I'm going to take a moment here and defer to the others and let them elaborate a little more on this.
There it is. I was like, okay, is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it? Yeah. Is BDO pay to win? Like I usually answer my question, answer on stream if someone asks. If short answer, sure. Long answer, not really. It's too expensive. Sure, you can throw in thousands of dollars, buy costumes, and then sell it on the market. Sure, but I don't have that kind of money, and it's gonna feel much better. But that's like the opposite. And there's plenty of really good players. For instance, the most recent one, to my memory, there might be others. There's such player as Choice, who did a whole series on like literally not spending a single dime and reaching highest gear score. So you can easily, not easily, you're going to invest more time, sure, but there is ways of how you cannot spend the money. And I would argue to anyone who is going to play BDO, just if you can, play those honeymoon 2 months. You know what I mean? Just like play for those 2 months. Don't spend a single dime, just initial purchase, or if it's free, just play for those 2 months. See if you like the game. After 2 months, usually, if you get hooked into it, you're gonna spend 100 hours of playtime. If you spent the 100 hours in the game, why not spend $10, $30? That's at least my point of view of like why I spend the money in the game. Like I spent hundreds of hours in the game. I guess I can allow myself to do that.
So I think it is pay to ease your life. That is what I would say it is. So you can pay for convenience, you can pay for quality of life. And if you do that, it's going to be nicer and more comfortable to grind. It's going to be nicer and more comfortable to do certain things. But I wouldn't say it's necessary by any means. You're going to obviously have to invest more hours into the game, but it's not like, oh no, I'm going to just swipe $100 and then way ahead of everyone. If you want to invest money into BDR to get ahead in progress, you're investing into gambling essentially, because what you do is you pay, what is it now, like 10, 20, 30 euros per outfit, which gives you essentially just crown stones. which you use to gamble and enhance. It doesn't guarantee progress by swiping in the game, because you cannot buy weapons, you cannot buy actual gear that's going to give you stats. All you can buy is something that's cosmetics that you can sell on the marketplace, but you're going to have to buy so many outfits to be able to actually buy the endgame gear that no reasonable person would invest that kind of money into it. And if you have that kind of money to pay to win, then you're rich. Because like I wouldn't even do that, because like I work full time, and like the only times I've swiped has been for cosmetics or because I wanted to gamble a bit, but that's not giving me progress. It's just to ease my life. I bought the tent because it gives me the tent buff, which is just easier than walking all the way somewhere else, where you can get the free version tent that's also going to give you certain things. So I would definitely say that the cap, like what is required for you to put in terms of real money to be able to progress at all in the game, is so much that it's a handful of people that would actually do it. So I wouldn't say it's pay to win. I would say it's pay for quality of life, because you have the value pack, you have the Book of Old Moon, and then you have a Camisole Blessing, like all of those. Like you have those 3 kind of buffs that you can buy, but the game also gives you a lot of them for free relatively often. You can pre-order them from the marketplace and try to snipe them. There's ways you can acquire it. You can gather up loyalty points to buy like a day of it. It's nice to have, and I would say I guess if you go by it, most people buy the value pack. But the value pack is similar to what people pay for paying WoW or playing WoW. So it's essentially just a monthly subscription fee like you're paying for in many other games, just that here it's optional if you want to pay that monthly subscription fee or not. So in WoW, it's mandatory. In, I guess, Final Fantasy, if I'm not wrong, there's also some mandatory payment. In BDO, when you have the game, and it's quite often free as well, because they have some kind of promotion, it is completely free if you want to pay for the subscription service or not.
The one thing that I think is kind of unfortunate in the gaming market today is I feel like a lot of games are made more with like a corporate suit on, if you will. And I don't mind games that have to provide different type of monetization, whether it be through simply cosmetics or whatever. Black Desert does have mechanics in the game that I would honestly call pay to win. I don't think the game is pay to win, however. And what I mean by that is it might be more worthwhile for you to spend $100. It might be like bear with me here. It might be more worthwhile to spend $100 in the very beginning, and you will get so much in return from that. However, if I were to pay to win in the end game, I'm spending thousands to tens of thousands of dollars to properly progress at that state of the game. The pay to win aspect completely becomes less and less worth it the more into the game that you get. I have played on my main account. I've invested thousands of dollars over the course of 5 to 6, 7 years, but I make content on that account. I also have a completely free to play that I've spent $0 account on, and I've also managed to get into the end game of the game as well. It is all doable. I label this as pay for convenience, but I do find that the gaming market abroad kind of is following this suit, whether it be like little percentage gains from something or whatever. In terms of statistical advantages, I find that pay to win is Cash Shop has something, gives a completely unfair advantage towards everybody else and makes you much more powerful than anybody else, and it's paywalled. Black Desert has nothing like that. Absolutely nothing like that. It's just you can pick up loot a little bit faster. You can have your marketplace through selling items to the marketplace. You can have the tax that gets cut off from the sale. You can have it be just a little bit less. You can increase your drop rate for item potential just a little bit more. But again, it's like it only makes so much of a difference. I do think that the game is completely enjoyable and digestible and playable without spending $1 on it, with only just paying the entry fee to get into the game. However, the game will advertise in front of you. It will try to get you to whatever. And if you're okay with just like, you know, some banners popping up here and there, and you can just click that off, I think the game is completely playable and digestible and enjoyable as it is. So the long story short is, do I think Black Desert is pay to win? No. I think it's incredibly paid for convenience. I think paying to win in this game is incredibly inefficient. However, you can. The avenue to do that is absolutely there. You can go in, you can drop dollars, you can buy in-game currency, but I'm telling you, it becomes incredibly expensive for it to be efficient where you want it to be efficient, if that makes sense, right? The early game, yeah, sure, you'll be in a fast lane by spending some money if you do that, but when you get to the places where it actually matters, that's going to require game knowledge, game sense, and legitimate skill to understand what you're doing, because the game isn't your traditional hit 1 through 0 key presses waiting for animations to go. It requires active involvement, active attention, and game sense awareness for a lot of things that you might be doing when you start getting into the content that actually matters.
Black Desert is pay to win. It is. You can buy power. How that would affect you as a gamer enjoying a video game, and how would it affect you if John across the street spent $100,000 in a month playing Black Desert? It shouldn't really affect your time as much as I feel other games and their pay-to-win monetization systems. But I'm not trying to shill for the game. It is pay-to-win. You can buy power, and yeah, you can definitely buy power in that game. But me personally, I don't feel how that would really affect in Black Desert. How that would affect many people's journeys. Sure, you can buy power though. But I mean, it's pay to win. I mean, if at any point, if you get any advantage at all, whether it be saves you a day or a month, if you have any advantage over somebody who doesn't have the means to pay or doesn't want to, you are paying to win. Yeah, I don't think it really should matter, but I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is pay to win by the definition of that pay to win. It is. It's pay to win.
But like, there's a really good metric that I've kind of mathed out after doing you crunch the numbers in the Pearl shop. How much IRL dollars do you have to spend for time in game? And I would say that you can either spend $40 or you can grind for an hour. That's how pay to win. That's kind of like where the margin is, right? So you can either spend $40 or you can grind for an hour. And 99% of players are just going to go grind for an hour. You know what I mean? Most players are not going to spend the $40 an hour it is to kind of keep up like that. It's just so much easier to go out and make money. You can make 1.5 billion silver an hour at a lot of spots. New players can come into the game and make like 800 million an hour. It's just a piece of cake. So is it pay to win? Absolutely, there's pay to win elements of the game. And you can absolutely turn your money into in-game currency. But like I said, that's kind of the metric that I mathed out, and that's usually what people are looking for. So it's usually, there's a line of tolerance that people are willing to tolerate, and I would say $40 per hour it's a pretty solid line. You're not gonna have to worry about it too much.
Finally, and this is more or less the reason you're here, is Black Desert Online worth playing in 2024? To me, personally, yeah. Every single year, BDO releases new classes, new content, new regions. It is always fun, for me personally, to come back to the game after a leave of absence and just play through their new, diverse, often unique classes, to see the new content that has been introduced into the game. But then I also end up leaving a couple weeks later due to the overwhelming amount of things that there is to do in the game, as I specifically have a very limited amount of time to actively invest into an MMO. Now, this is the most beautiful MMO right now, and it has unparalleled action combat. It also has a world that I think only World of Warcraft can realistically compete with in terms of actual fun to explore. But let's take a moment here and see what everyone else has to say.
The short answer, yes. I'd say, yeah. Just because there's a lot of quality of life changes that happens in BDO, and they keep pumping out those very frequently. And as a new player, there's plenty of things to do. It's a good buy usually it's on sale. So don't buy BDO ever at full price. Anything in BDO, don't buy full price. Always, there's going to be a discount, there's going to be anniversary, just wait it out, there's going to be a sale, go into it. It is worth it, but just you can't, man, it's, I can't even you can't, I would recommend BDO, but at the same time, I know a lot of people are it takes too much time. So if you have time, but you can do it fishing for 2 months, and maybe you're gonna get into it AFK, and then you're gonna like find out about the node systems, and then you're gonna find out about different boats, the different fishing routes. Then investing into nodes, that means leveling the node for the better loot. Then you're gonna find out about the market system. It's like, you know what I mean? Because like BDO offers you immediately the whole world, so it takes time to get into it. Or you can fell in love in like a combat, like watching something in remastered and just flashy, just beautiful. I don't know. I would recommend it. And for those who are returning to BDO, as I said, a couple of months, take a break. If you're bored, if you're not, try out the other games. Come back, because we're gonna have plenty of quality of life changes that are gonna increase the gameplay.
I think if you enjoy MMOs and you generally are looking for a new MMO to play and test out, I think that BDO is a great game to play, and I would say it's definitely one of the MMOs I've found that I've been like really sticking to, because I've tested MMOs for years and years and years, all kind of weird ones, just trying to chase new ones. But the way that their guilds have, if you find like a good guild and you just get in there, it's a very good like social area, building friendships, like, and now they even started with having these more like meetups and such. I'm very big into community, as you might be able to tell. I really enjoy just playing with people, which is what I enjoy here about this as well, especially with Discord, but coming in and helping as well. They've done so much to the game in terms of quality of life, and also just making it easy to jump in as a new player with gear growth. So I don't know, I think it's a nice game to test out and go for if you're looking for a new MMO and you feel like you haven't met something that's quite there. You need to invest a little bit of time and get like a feel for the combat system and the key inputs, but once you get used to that, it's really nice. It's a marathon. It's a long race. It's not a game that you're just going to be able to master in a day. It's going to take time to settle into, to get used to all of the concepts, all of the things you can do, and also PvP and the different aspects of that.
As I said earlier, the developers continue to put a much higher percentage focus on the new player experience based on all the patches that I've seen come out, all the quality of life changes I've seen come out. Yes, it does have a ripple effect into the later end game, but majority, a higher percentage of the time, it is catered for the new player, for the new player experience, because they want people to come in, not feel this daunting experience, and want to be able to have the most important thing, fun, right? This game sometimes can feel like a second job. That's what any MMO is, though. There's so much time required. If you want an in-depth answer, though, I would say about 3 months ago, I made a tremendously detailed, is Black Desert worth playing in 2023? I made it at the end of the year in 2023. For an entire week, I let my community submit notes and suggestions on what players need to be aware of and this and that. It still holds tremendous. It's probably about 99% completely still relevant right now. If you want to know the in-depth details of that, I would highly recommend checking that out for an extremely detailed answer. But my short answer is yes, I do, because the developers' focus is continuing to bring new players into the game and make that new player experience much more enjoyable in comparison to what it has been last year and years prior.
I would say I hate that question. I hate that. But after saying that, I would say I think looking at everything that question money-wise, right? Black Desert Online offers a very unique experience for $1 or sometimes free. The game is extremely affordable, I feel, for people. It is often given away for free. It's $1 or $10. And with just the introduction fee of $10 or lower or free, you get a game that will never charge you for another character, another expansion area, another new content. They don't charge you additional content. It's definitely worth it. And you know what? The game might not be for everybody, and that's totally fine. Some people need, a hand to hold and say, hey, this is the narrative, this is the raid, and this is what you do next. Black Desert Online doesn't do that, and I can understand why people wouldn't like that. But in terms of worth, is it Black Desert worth to play in 2024 for its price tag and the amount of hours you can get out of the game? I definitely think this game is worth it. And for sure, 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. They're always adding catch-up mechanics. It almost makes the veteran players angry because they add so much stuff for the new players. their big mission, like currently, is to like condense everything down. There's too many item types. There's too much item bloat in the game. You covered this in your last video on it. There's just too much item bloat. There's too much stuff going on. So they're condensing everything down, like blackstones, enhancement materials. Everything's getting boiled down to one to make it way easier for a new player to like jump into the world. It's already got a lot of complex systems. You don't need a million items on top of it clogging up everyone's inventories. On top of the fact that all the catch-up mechanics in the game, players hit 600, 650 gear score in like a week or two. I mean, it is nuts how fast they can catch up. And you can jump into basically PvP. You can jump into T1 Node Wars on like day 2 of the game. And then you could be doing Tier 4 Node Wars by 2 weeks into the game. So like the only Node Wars that you're not going to be able to do are kind of uncapped. And you'll be able to do those after, you know, a couple months of progression, depending on how like actively you're playing and what kind of content you're participating in. So like if you're worried about trying to catch up, not that big of a deal. And there's more classes than ever, so like there's the chances of you finding the class that you really relate to as a player is very, very high.
And that is Black Desert Online in 2024. Hopefully it answered some burning questions that you might have had, and hopefully you enjoyed sitting down here with everyone as we talked about one of the most fun, engaging MMOs on the market right now. If you want more videos like this one, let me know what game I should cover next in the comments below, and which creators I should go ahead and get involved. Also, if you're interested, I have more videos in this series on screen right now, and a list of MMOs releasing this year in 2024 for those of you wanting something new.